Have you ever flown into Canada or the US and felt instantly uncomfortable at the border, like you've done something wrong even when you haven't? We're not talking about dictatorships here, we're talking about Canada and the United States, countries that call themselves constitutional and democratic, and yet somehow manage to make ordinary people feel like suspects first. So, what is it about how these systems work, and why does it feel so different in Europe, where you're treated like a tourist, a traveler, or someone working in another country, a human being first? Not a terrorist in the making, but a normal person, assumed innocent until proven otherwise.
Hey, hoi, welcome to the Dutch door. Kom maar in. Ga je mee?
Flying into the Netherlands, to me, feels like a homecoming before I land. Coming in over the North Sea, then the long flat coastline, the fields, the ditches, the tidy geometry of it all. You descend into Schiphol, everything feels familiar, the blue KLM logo everywhere, signs in Dutch, and the Albert Heijn Express store. With automated passport control, you're through in minutes. No lingering tension, and you simply walk out through Schiphol's nothing to declare exit, a wide open gate built on the assumption that most people are telling the truth. You wouldn't see that in Canada or the United States, where borders tend to start from the assumption that you're probably hiding something, even if it's minor. Once you've experienced a system that assumes calm and adulthood by default, it becomes very hard to accept that constant unease as the price of safety. Homecoming to Vancouver is a bit different. The plane breaks through the clouds, the mountains appear, grouse and cypress in the distance, the ridgeline, the water, the city coming into focus piece by piece. The airport itself is genuinely lovely, full of indigenous art, light, and space. And yet, even with automated passport gates, there's still that final step, the customs form, the moment you hand it over and feel a small familiar twinge, that quiet thought of, are they going to pull me aside for no reason at all? At Vancouver International Airport, YVR as we call it, security isn't hostile, but it's clinical and distant, and your body feels that right away. US pre-clearance in the same airport sharpens it further, with harder tone and posture, and by comparison, Canada only feels better, but it's a weak comparison because the bar set by the United States is so low that clearing it doesn't tell you much. The difference you feel at the border carries on to the street, because policing in the Netherlands grew out of daily civic life, while policing in North America gradually became more distant, reactive, and detached from the communities it serves. Historically in the Netherlands, police walked or biked local beats. They knew the streets, recognized faces, and were seen regularly in non-confrontational contexts. So authority came from familiarity rather than performance, and compliance from social recognition rather than intimidation. That proximity mattered, because when police are embedded in daily life, they don't need to assert control immediately, they don't have to dominate a space to be taken seriously, and encounters don't begin with suspicion as the default. The system assumed most people were ordinary citizens making ordinary decisions, which is why small rule breaking like crossing a street on a red light was treated as judgment rather than provocation. I didn't even know the term jaywalking existed until I moved to Canada. There's no such word in Dutch. That doesn't mean force never existed or abuse never happened, but it does mean the baseline interaction wasn't designed as a test of obedience. And over time, that shaped how officers behaved and how citizens learned to respond. North America took a different path, and that difference shows up most clearly in how police and border officers are trained. This treatment is taught and structural, written into training manuals. It plays out very personally, because who you are, how you look, how you sound, and what country your passport is from. No one pushes back at the border, because we've seen what happens when officers get to decide what reasonable means. But the intimidation is intentional. The real difference here isn't crime levels or danger, it's doctrine. Because in much of the United States, police and border officers are trained around one core assumption, which is that you are a potential threat until proven otherwise. And once that assumption is in place, it shapes every interaction before a single word is spoken. It explains the yelling that arrives immediately, the rigid posture, the dominance games, the refusal to soften tone, and that flat, zero humanity delivery that makes even simple questions feel like tests you can fail. Because the system isn't designed to establish normalcy first, it's designed to establish control. This way of training is written into the rules. Officers are taught using manuals that leave a lot of room for interpretation about what reasonable force means. They practice worst-case scenarios over and over, and the law almost always backs them up afterward, which sends a clear message. If you act out of fear and take control fast, you'll probably be protected. Canada softens this a bit. Officers are usually calmer and less aggressive, but the basic idea is still there. In much of Europe, that idea is rejected altogether, not because officers are nicer, but because the systems start from a different place. It treats the person in front of you as a normal citizen first, not a problem waiting to happen. In US and Canada, this fear was learned from watching ordinary situations spiral, because enforcement plus ambiguity often ends badly. Take these examples. Robert Zikansky arrived at Vancouver Airport in 2007, exhausted and jet-lagged, speaking little English. Anxious but not violent, he was tasered within seconds by police and died on the floor. Kelly Thomas, a homeless man with schizophrenia, was beaten to death in California over a question about train tickets. Daniel Prude, naked and clearly in mental distress, was restrained face down in Rochester until he stopped breathing, after his family called police for help. In case after case, long investigations, settlements paid by cities, officers cleared or acquitted. The legal standard isn't whether force could have been avoided, but whether the officer's fear was reasonable, a leeway that almost always leads to acquittal. That standard shapes training, officer safety above all else, threat assessment drilled in, hesitation treated as non-compliance. Over time, uncertainty itself becomes suspicious, and civilians must perform calm obedience under stress. It's a logic closer to a police state than the democracy we're told we live in. And these are my personal stories. My brother gets stopped far more than I do. Our mother is Indonesian, our father Dutch. The Indonesian side shows more in him, especially in summer when he's quite dark. That difference alone has shaped how we're treated. He used to cross the US-Canadian border regularly, but kept getting pulled aside and questioned. Eventually, he gave it up. The same pattern in Canada. After a double shift at work, exhausted, Surrey police pulled him over, skipped the breathalyzer, made him do the roadside balance test, one foot in front of the other, which almost no one can do when tired, or even not tired. They impounded his car, $50 cab ride, $300 to get his car back, no charges, no proof. And after my father died, I brought my mother back to the Netherlands for a month. She flew back alone and was questioned with such hostility at the airport that she started crying. A 65-year-old Indonesian woman with a Dutch passport, 30 years in Canada, recently widowed, standing alone, pushed until she broke. Shame on you, Canada. Two of my friends, upon return to the Netherlands, were caught out by the 90-day Schengen rule at Schiphol, one Mexican, one Canadian. They were stopped, the rule was explained. They were put up overnight at the airport hotel, flights home paid for, sent back firmly, but without humiliation. And this is my own doozy. When my Dutch passport was stolen, I traveled to London on my Canadian one. No Dutch entry stamps. Flagged at Schiphol, customs control, the Koninklijke Marechaussee, took me aside, talked to me for a bit and said, "Oh, you're very obviously Dutch. You'll get that passport thing sorted out soon. Off you go." Just like that. Think that would have happened that easily anywhere else? The numbers make the pattern hard to ignore. In the United States, police kill roughly 1,000 people a year. In Canada, deaths in custody numbers in the hundreds over decades. In the Netherlands, fatal police incidents are usually counted in the low dozens annually. Counting methods differ, but the gap is real. And despite all the toughness at borders, terrorism is almost never stopped by a snap decision at a desk. It's stopped quietly, behind the scene, through intelligence, long investigations, data sharing, and work done far from airport queues. Which is why the rituals we associate with security, intimidation, suspicion, making people nervous on purpose, don't actually produce safety. They produce compliance. When borders and policing lean into theater instead of calm systems and intelligence, what they're really enforcing isn't protection, but control. These systems probably aren't going anywhere, at least not in North America. Fear is familiar and theater looks like action. But once you've experienced something calmer, it's hard to unlearn the contrast.